A panacea is defined as a remedy for all difficulties and diseases. It is a medicine, potion, or other item that can pull a patient back from the brink of death and save someone from even the worst of circumstances. A cure-all. It's a wonderful idea, one that would save countless lives, put a stop to untold needless suffering, and improve the human experience on a permanent global scale. Unfortunately, anyone claiming to have the solution to all problems is likely just trying to sell you something. Unless, of course, that person works at the SCP Foundation. Then they just might be telling you the truth. Because they just might be telling you about SCP-500. SCP-500, also known as the Panacea, is completely unassuming in appearance. All it consists of is a single plastic pill bottle filled with exactly 47 red pills. This is all that remains of the world's only known miracle cure. When the pills were first discovered by the Foundation, they were used in a variety of experiments in order to determine the limits, if any, of their curative powers. They tested the pills on everything from diseases like cancer to physical injuries like a broken femur. In each and every case, one pill taken orally cured the test subject of all symptoms within a matter of hours. After determining that SCP-500 could treat natural ailments, the Foundation's scientists decided to apply it to more unnatural ills. 2 pills were authorized for use with SCP-008 to be administered to Class D personnel who had been exposed to it. At the time of this experiment's approval, there were 57 pills in the can. SCP-008 is a complex prion, or a misfolded protein with the ability to change the shape of correctly formed variants of the same protein. Prions are considered to be the cause of mad cow disease, among many other debilitating neurodegenerative diseases. SCP-008 is no exception to the devastation. It takes what is terrifying about other prion diseases, the loss of cognition, the onset of dementia, the certain death, and cranks it up to 11. 20 hours after the onset of symptoms, the infected person will slip into a coma, but that is not the end of their suffering. The nervous system is damaged and the cells have begun to necrotize, but the infected person is still able to move. They shamble around on 2 legs, they crawl, they grab, and they bite. They seek out stimuli that indicate the presence of a living, uninfected human, and they will attempt to devour it. The only way to stop an infected individual is to completely destroy their brain. Essentially, it is a zombie plague. Understandably, the Foundation has a vested interest in curing and containing SCP-008, and so the promise of the Panacea was an enticing one. For the purposes of the experiment, a member of the Class D personnel was randomly selected and exposed to SCP-008. Within 3 hours, he began to exhibit symptoms, running a fever of 105 degrees and coughing and vomiting uncontrollably. Wanting to see if it would be possible to use SCP-500 as a cure even in the latest stages of the disease, the scientists conducting the experiment allowed the symptoms to progress, with the test subject eventually slipping into a coma. Once comatose, the cell degeneration quickened until he began to move again. His dull, unfocused eyes roamed around the room, and he lurched towards a member of the research staff, biting down on her arm. Of course, she was clad in hazmat gear in order to prevent infection, but the Class D no longer had the cognitive capacity to understand that. The researcher seized the opportunity to wrench his jaws open and stuff one of the SCP-500 pills down his throat. Once the pill had been swallowed, she vacated the room and the test subject was quarantined. After 2 hours, the research team returned to investigate the results of their test. What they found was something amazing. Sitting in the cell was a completely lucid, healthy, if a bit confused man, with no signs of the disease that had previously ravaged his body. The Panacea was able to cure SCP-008, even at its most advanced stages. So they knew that SCP-500 could cure a prion disease like 008, but what else could it cure? What was the extent of its marvelous medical power, if any? Could it cure an ailment with virtually no basis in modern medical understanding? Next, one pill was approved and allocated for testing with SCP-409. SCP-409 is a rock formation resembling a large quartz crystal. It is kept in a sealed granite case, and no one is permitted to touch it with any substance other than granite. unless during active experimentation. Anyone who comes into physical contact with SCP-409 suffers a peculiar and nightmarish fate. They will immediately begin to crystallize, their body effectively turning into rock. The crystallization occurs at a rate of roughly 1 inch per minute and will continue until the victim's entire body, inside and out, has solidified. It is an incredibly painful process and thought to be completely irreversible. Subject 409-D5 was chosen at random from a group of Class D personnel as the guinea pig for the next SCP-500 experiment. He was exposed to SCP-409, touching it with his index finger. This small touch was more than enough to seal his fate. Upon contact, the finger immediately began to crystallize, spreading up his hand, his wrist, and his arm over the course of several minutes as he screamed in agony. It was difficult to administer SCP-500 with all this screaming, but a researcher was able to close his mouth long enough for the pill to be swallowed. Within a few hours, the Foundation researchers watched as the crystallization process slowed and then stopped. After 9 days in a Foundation hospital ward, the crystallization process had completely reversed, and the man was returned to normal. He still reported phantom pain in the formerly crystallized parts of his body, but even that cleared up after several more days. After the incredible success of the SCP-008 and SCP-409 trials, the Foundation was desperate to synthesize their own version of SCP-500. A multitude of experiments were performed in an attempt to isolate the active ingredient in the pills, but every time they found what appeared to be the miracle aspect of the anomalous pills, they found that they were unable to synthesize it and have it produce the same results as the real thing. Extensive drug trials were conducted, leaving a trail of injured and dead D-Class personnel in their wake. With the traditional pharmacological route eliminated, the Foundation decided to expose some of the pills to a variety of other SCPs in an attempt to somehow recreate or amplify their effects. Most of the results were lackluster or completely uneventful. However, some did yield notable results. One pill was taken from SCP-500 and placed inside of SCP-914, which is a large clockwork device with a multitude of settings, ranging from very fine to rough, that is capable of transforming matter in various ways. The pill was run through SCP-914 on the fine setting, and the machine produced a small silver locket, which would later be classified as SCP-427. SCP-427 retains some of the healing properties of its original form, able to regenerate damaged cells and purge infection from the body when it is opened and exposed to a living subject. During testing, it was able to cure the common cold in a matter of minutes. However, unlike SCP-500, the locket produced notable negative side effects. Prolonged exposure to SCP-427's healing properties increased cell regeneration and the optimization of bodily systems beyond a healthy threshold. Exposure for more than an hour turned the test subjects into shapeless masses of tissue, nicknamed flesh beasts. These flesh beasts are highly aggressive and will attack anything in sight unless they are put down. SCP-427 was intended to be a potential replacement for SCP-5000 once the limited number of pills ran out, but the potential risks of its use have led to it being shelved indefinitely. With all attempts to create a different yet equally effective version of SCP-500 ending in failure, the Foundation instead tried to find a way to duplicate it. In one case, an experiment was conducted with the intent to produce more of the Panacea pills, not using chemistry and compounding, but instead opting for a much more unusual method. After a request was submitted and approved, 5 pills from the bottle were selected to be exposed to SCP-038. SCP-038 is a highly unique plant, resembling a common apple tree. However, it can grow far more than just apples. The tree can clone any object that touches its bark, producing the clone on its branches where an ordinary tree would bear fruit. The 5 allocated pills were touched to the fabric of the tree, and sure enough, clones of the red capsules began to sprout within seconds. But while the tree was able to clone pills that looked identical to SCP-500, their effectiveness was sorely lacking compared to the originals. Clone pills were only approximately 30% effective in curing the infections they were used to treat, as opposed to the 100% effectiveness with the real deal. The clone pills were set aside for treatment of less severe infections, and all of the originals were returned to their storage container. Well, almost all of them. As the experiment was wrapping up, A D-class participating in the experiment managed to pocket one of the 5 pills allocated for the test. The pill's absence was not noticed until the following day, at which point it had already been ingested by the thief. When interrogated, the man admitted that he had stolen the pill in order to cure a particularly nasty hangover, after his usual method of pickle juice, a bacon sandwich, and aspirin had failed. The employee was promptly terminated, and security around SCP-500 was tightened significantly. Following this incident, no personnel below Level 3 were permitted to handle SCP-500 in any capacity. When it was initially brought into the Foundation, there were approximately 57 pills in SCP-500's container, and currently only 47 remain. Due to the limited amount of pills, and inability thus far to duplicate them in an equivalently effective form, experimentation with SCP-500 has been drastically limited. Most requests for experimentation or allocation of pills are promptly denied. These requests have included a Dr. Gibbons, who asked that 2 pills be given to him for his personal medkit, as well as a proposed experiment involving SCP-253, a group of cells which bear some strong resemblances to cancer. Several concerned personnel at the Foundation have worried that SCP-500 may have another anomalous effect, that it may cause obsessive fixation in those who spend a great deal of time with it, leading them to experiment with it again and again, unable to let it go until they crack an unsolvable code. This has been immediately dismissed as trivial and unfounded by the SCP-500 research team. Surely their obsessive work with the pills is their own choice, but perhaps the concerned parties have a point. After all, there are a few things more compelling than a miracle cure, and there is arguably no greater scientific discovery that could be made, no higher mountain than one could climb. And there is nothing more maddening than having that life-saving pill in your grasp, and watch the number dwindle down 1 pill at a time, like grains of sand slipping between your fingers. With only 47 pills left, and no way to recreate them on the horizon, perhaps the Panacea is both a blessing and a curse, a tantalizing glimpse at what humanity could have but will never truly achieve. But hey, maybe they'll crack the code if they just try one more experiment, and why not try? There'll still be 46 left, and then 45, and then, well, let's just hope they figure it out before they truly are all gone. Now go check out SCP-999 the Tickle Monster, and the iPod's SCP-131 for more helpful anomalies.